Okay, today class we're going to be learning how to draw a sphere, and we need to use gradient values when learning how to draw a sphere. And as you remember in your previous assignment, this bottom layer is the gradient value. We worked along the line there, and we gradually got lighter and lighter and lighter in our lines as we moved towards the lightest value, which was the white on the end. So on our sphere, we're going to be doing the same type of thing. If you look at a sphere that's floating up in the air, you have kind of like a little bit of a highlight and things like that, and you have some different gradient values. If you have it, and just kind of watch closely, see if I can get this, notice that with the paper reflects the white of the paper onto the sphere and makes it lighter, doesn't it? Okay, so when we start doing our sphere, so you'll be looking at your worksheet that has the cube that you've done, the cylinder, and now we're going to be looking at that sphere. So on the sphere, we're going to leave a little bit white here at the bottom, and that's to show the reflective light that I just showed you. Okay, so a sphere is circular, and you're basically going to be working in smaller and smaller circular patterns till you get to that gradient value of white at the beginning, and then we'll go back and get the reflective part on the bottom of the sphere. So to start with, we trace along a little bit of the sphere, and I'm just going to be using my hand just to kind of pivot, and I'm going to be turning my paper. Just kind of lift up on your pencil just a little bit. Otherwise your hand's planted. So after you've turned it, then plant your hand again. And this is going to be our darkest value, so make sure it's a nice heavy dark line. Okay, now I'm going to come back up, make sure it's nice and curved. And then trace up the side. And again, you want to make sure that that is nice and curved. And notice I'm laying lines right next to each other. Okay, so now as I'm working, I'm looking at my core shadow, just making sure it's nice and curved. You can see that it's kind of a crescent shape. Okay, and that's what you want. You want to avoid coming to a sharp point like the eye project. You don't want it to look like that. You need to make sure you're following that curve. So every single time, I've already got brown here, so I have to start higher up on the sphere and then bring my lines down. And I'm going back in, kind of darkening, so this next section is going to be a little bit wider. And I'm ending up a little bit higher. So start a little higher and end a little higher every single time. So I've already got it right here, so I need to start just a little bit higher. And again, end a little higher. Try to keep it nice and curved. Always double check and make sure this shape in the center is a circle. Okay? Let me fix that just a little bit. So down below here right now you still have a crescent shape that will work at the very end, and then you've got this circle shape up here. Again, start higher. Keep following that line. Notice I'm gradually getting lighter and lighter each time as I'm going with my lines across. And if it ends up not being gradient, like you have dark patches and stuff, you want to go back through, or if you have white patches, you need to go back through and blend those lines together. Okay, now I started there, so now I'm starting up just a little bit higher. And I ended there before, so now I need to end just a little bit higher. Started there, so I need to start higher. Double check that you've got still a circle shape. And again, we're basically just making smaller and smaller circles. So now my ends are meeting, so now I'm just going to be making smaller and smaller circles as I go in towards that lightest value of white. Just double check that you continually have that circle shape. And I'm having to go back and darken things just a little bit so it's more of a gradual change, so I end up with just a tiny small white circular value in the middle. Okay, and just continually kind of go back and forth. Now after you've got the top part done, and this highlight should be just white, okay, so you just have a tiny little dot of just pure white there, okay. Now we've got this is just reflected light, so it needs to be darker than this that has direct light up above. So going from the coarse shadow, you get gradually a little bit lighter, but not as much as the top part, because this is still a shadow. Notice still keeping that little crescent shape, keep working. Make sure that there is no white down below. So kind of a crescent shape. Till you've got that. You can kind of just go over it. You'll always want to keep kind of going over, finding your little white spots. That's what an artist does. And going back and blending with that pencil. So don't forget that very important part. You want your lines to be nice and smooth. You don't want to have any inconsistencies and stuff like that. So last step, make sure that you're going back over it really, really good and picking up on those, any inconsistencies and things like that that you might have. And if you want to do a shadow at the very bottom, like it's sitting on something, then you would just do an oval shape. So just an oval shape. Make sure that this part is level with that part. The darkest part is where it is touching. and you want to be moving left and right so it looks like it's down on a flat surface. Notice my little oval shape was very light, and that's because when we do shadows, they don't have hard edges. If you put your hand, you can see here my shadow of my fingers and stuff like that. That's not a hard line, is it? Okay, so I kind of think of like the shadows, it kind of fuzzes out to that edge. And then you can kind of clean it up with an eraser right around the edge just to make sure there's no hard lines around that. Okay? All right. So again, coarse shadow. Make sure you start high and higher every single time. You're basically doing smaller and smaller circles. Okay? After you do the top part, don't forget to get the reflected part. And remember, it's darker because it is not direct light. And then oval for your sphere. And again, the last step, double check, make sure everything's nice and smooth and looks good.